Greetings and salutations. Therese Baca-Radler here. Today we're going to talk about land acknowledgements. First, I'm going to ask, in what ways do you generally think about the spaces where you learn? Please take a moment to ponder that question. Well, it is important to look at the immediate environment and think about the pieces within it. An acknowledgement of its complete story is in order. The land acknowledgement is a formal statement recognizing the unique and enduring relationship that exists between Indigenous peoples and their traditional territories. They serve as an honest way of recognizing Indigenous territories of place. Now, this next piece is something that I adopted from the City of Albuquerque Land Acknowledgement Guide. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that you can follow along as I read it word for word. Land acknowledgement is recognizing that the Native Indigenous Americans were here first, and this was their land until colonization came and took it by force. Land acknowledgement is part of a worldwide movement that began many years ago in the 80s, maybe even longer, by Native Indigenous leaders and elders. It is a rejection of colonization. It is a rejection of the doctrine of discovery. The doctrine of discovery paved the way for Spanish conquest of the New World. Land acknowledgement is also the respectful way of acknowledging whose Native Indigenous lands you are on. Acknowledging the underlying harsh history of the Native Indigenous people's plight where the ensuing reconciliation is needed is also part of land acknowledgement. It also raises awareness of Native Indigenous people's presence and the land rights in our everyday life. Again, this is something that I adopted from the City of Albuquerque Land Acknowledgement Guide. There are also some pieces of background information that I included that you can go ahead and look through down below. Moving forward, we are going to really start looking at the spaces in which we learn and the spaces in which we are going to write a land acknowledgement for. You can go ahead and choose that space for yourself. It could either be your hometown, it could be your it could be a place where you just very much enjoy studying, or it could be the place where you work or study. So again, we are writing a land acknowledgement for the place of your choice, the space of your choice, and this is a space where you generally get to learn or where you teach. This land acknowledgement can be used for a variety of different purposes. The objective in this activity is that we learn the steps for writing a land acknowledgement, and we get a practical application in doing so. So the 5 steps for writing a land acknowledgement are something that I took from this document right here. And please feel free, I know it's going to show up sideways. Please feel free to take a look at this a little bit more in depth, in that it goes into those 5 steps, with the first being evaluate the purpose of your land acknowledgement. The second is to ground your mindset in honesty, positivity, and respect. The third is to do your research. The fourth is to write your acknowledge, focusing on past, present, and future, again, representing the whole story. And the fifth is to check your statement. Now, I'm going to sort of pause here because this is the piece that I wanted to share with you. There is a template provided in this document that can help you to formulate your statement. You're going to want to make sure that you follow these 5 guidelines, and going back to our document, that you do the research for your specific space that you are acknowledging. So where do you find more information about those spaces? One place that you can go is NPR. We've got a map here that will help you to identify the native lands that you are acknowledging. You'll just have to find it on the map. It will help you to find the spelling It will help you with pronunciation as well, although the computer pronunciation is rough at best. So let's keep that in mind. But it does help with that. So going back to our original document, we've got the 5 steps for writing the land acknowledgement outlined here that we just discussed. If you want more information about these 5 steps, again, you can go ahead and review them in the document, which is linked here. And from there, you will do your research, which, as I stated before, you can begin using the NPR website here. And then you might want to take what you find within this website and do more research in writing your statement. That is up to you. But while doing all of this, I am going to come back to a document that was shared with me while I was participating in the Embracing Equity Fellowship. And that is something that outlines some very specific things to remember while writing the land acknowledgement. The first is to add the accurate pronunciation of the names and of the territories, nations, language, and peoples that you are acknowledging. Again, the NPR website will help you do that. You will want to incorporate regional history of Indigenous nations, language, and peoples. The NPR website may not help you do that. That may take a little bit more digging. Again, make sure that you save your sources so that you can share your references with others. That is very important. You're going to want to avoid speaking about Indigenous people solely in the past tense. You will want to offer information about the nations named in your acknowledgement and what they are doing today. Remember, this is a full picture story, and we are using present tense when talking about Indigenous peoples. And we also want to talk about the fabulous things that are happening in today's day and time. We're not just using past tense. And then for settlers, it's important that you also acknowledge the actions that you are taking to redistribute resources and authentically support local Indigenous people in your area. So this is something that's very personal. This is a piece that you'll want to include that will come directly from your heart. Next, you'll want to make sure that you uplift the resilience and resistance of Indigenous people to colonization and genocide. And finally, you will want to use resources created by Indigenous peoples and prioritize websites and resources curated by tribal nations themselves. So back to our original document. I have provided you with 2 examples of land acknowledgements that I currently use. And then I've got some information to help you write your own land acknowledgement. So we've outlined the objective in that participants will develop a land acknowledgement for the learning space of their choice. And in doing so, you will complete 4 things. You'll review the resources provided to you, and you will probably have to find some resources based on your own research. You will write a rough draft land acknowledgement. Remember, there's a template provided in our document that represents the 5 steps of writing a land acknowledgement, and you might find that template useful. You will want to review the rough draft with a second set of eyes, which might be your course collaborator, your mentor, or just a colleague that you trust. And finally, you will want to finalize and share your land acknowledgement with your peers and colleagues so that we can all gain a better understanding of the writing process, as well as see some examples of what others are writing. Last but not least, there are some follow-up questions that I've provided at the end to go through and just sort of checking your land acknowledgement. The first is to reflect on the purpose of your land acknowledgement. If you remember, the first step in writing a land acknowledgement is acknowledging the purpose. So make sure you've got that and that you are prepared to share that with others. Make sure that you've grounded your mindset in honesty, positivity, and respect. Make sure that you have done the research and that you have saved your sources so that you can share them with others. And finally, ensure that your acknowledgement focuses on the whole story, past, present, and future. With that said, I will go ahead and stop sharing my screen. And that is it. It's your turn. You get to write your own land acknowledgement. I am looking forward to reading each of them. Try to have fun with this. Be flexible, heartfelt, and honest. And I think that you will find joy in this activity. Until next time, have a wonderful day.